Good news for BRVM investors. The week of May 4 to 8 ended on a positive note. The main market indexes moved higher, trading volumes increased sharply, several companies confirmed or proposed dividend payments, and the bond market continued to attract strong investor interest. In simple terms, the regional market is showing renewed confidence. Welcome to Markets Talk, the Daba Finance podcast, where we make African financial markets simple, clear, and useful for everyone. Today, we are looking back at the past week on the BRVM, with a focus on top stocks, market indexes, bond trades, dividends announced for 2026, and the opportunities to watch in the week ahead. As always, our goal is simple: to help you understand what is moving, why it matters, and how you can become a more informed investor. Let's begin with the market indexes. The BRVM composite, which gives us a broad view of the whole market, rose by 0.50% to close at 404.59 points. The BRVM 30, which tracks 30 of the most representative companies on the exchange, gained 0.82% to end the week at 191.36 points. The BRVM Prestige also moved higher, rising by 0.31% to 158.71 points. And the BRVM Principal advanced by 0.51% to 280.72 points. The key message here is that the market's progress was not limited to one index. Several major segments of the BRVM moved in the same direction. For investors, this suggests that confidence is gradually returning, even though the market remains selective. When several indexes rise together, it usually means that buyers are becoming more active across different types of stocks, not just in one isolated corner of the market. This renewed confidence also appeared in trading activity. The number of shares traded rose strongly by 129.82%, reaching 5,170,115 shares. The total value of transactions also increased by 34.22%, reaching 7,426,900,000 CFA francs. Why is that important? Because a market that rises with very little trading can sometimes be fragile. But when the market rises while volumes also increase, it suggests that more investors are participating. Think of it like a football stadium filling up before a big match. The more people come in, the stronger the atmosphere becomes, and the more seriously everyone takes the signal. The most active stock of the week was Sonatel Senegal, with transactions worth 1,077,000 CFA francs. That represented 14.50% of total market trading. Sonatel remains one of the reference stocks of the BRVM. Investors continue to watch it closely because of its liquidity, its financial strength, its history of dividend payments, and its central role in telecommunications across West Africa. SITAB Côte d'Ivoire and Société Générale Côte d'Ivoire also helped drive trading activity, confirming that investors are still paying close attention to strong, liquid, and well-followed companies. Now, let's move to the top stocks of the week. The strongest performer was Sucrivoire Côte d'Ivoire, which jumped by 20.85% to close at 2,004 CFA francs. Its performance since the beginning of the year has now reached 126.89%. That is a very strong move. But this is where investors need to be careful. Sucrivoire's rise came after the company reported a loss of 6,131,000 CFA francs for the 2025 financial year, compared with a profit of 2,590,000 CFA francs in 2024. So the market reaction is not simply based on strong current profits. It appears to be more speculative. In other words, some investors may be betting that the company can recover in the future. This is an important lesson for anyone investing on the BRVM. A stock can rise even when recent financial results are weak, if investors believe the future may improve, but this kind of move can also carry higher risk. A speculative rally can be powerful, but it can also reverse quickly if expectations are not met. The second best performance of the week came from SITAB Côte d'Ivoire, which rose by 9.11% to reach 21,500 CFA francs. Palm Côte d'Ivoire completed the top three, with a gain of 6.70% to 7,800 CFA francs. These movements show that investors remain interested in industrial, agricultural, and consumer-related companies, especially when they believe earnings or dividends can remain attractive. On the downside, Oragroup Togo recorded the sharpest fall of the week, dropping by 21.54% to 10,050 CFA francs. The decline was mainly linked to investor disappointment after the group decided not to distribute a dividend despite returning to profit. Tractafric Motors Côte d'Ivoire also fell by 19.67% to 3,695 CFA franc. Bernabé Côte d'Ivoire declined by 16.93% to 1,300 CFA franc. This point is very important. On the BRVM, dividends matter a lot. Many investors buy shares not only because they hope the share price will rise, but also because they want regular income. When a company does not pay a dividend, especially when investors were expecting one, the stock can be punished quickly. And that brings us to one of the biggest topics of the season, dividends. The 2026 dividend season continues to take shape. According to the weekly dividend recap, 26 companies out of 47 have announced or proposed a dividend this year, with an estimated average yield of 5.53%. A dividend yield is the income an investor receives from dividends compared with the share price. For example, if a stock gives you a dividend, and that dividend represents 5% of the current price, the dividend yield is 5%. Among the companies already confirmed or closely followed, we have BOA Burkina Faso, with a proposed dividend of 397 CFA francs and an estimated yield of around 7.35%. BOA Côte d'Ivoire proposed $594,528 CFA francs per share. BOA Benin proposed 585 CFA francs. BOA Sénégal proposed 405 CFA francs. Sonatel Sénégal proposed 1,740 CFA francs. Ecobank Côte d'Ivoire proposed 781 CFA francs. Other companies such as Chorus Bank, SAPH Côte d'Ivoire, SIB, Onatel, Palm Côte d'Ivoire, Société Générale Côte d'Ivoire, and Total Côte d'Ivoire also appear in the dividend calendar. On the other hand, companies such as BOA Niger, CTO, Sucrivoire, Bernabé, and Oragroup decided not to pay dividends this year. For investors, this matters because dividends can play a major role in long-term returns. A share price can move up and down, sometimes sharply, but dividends can provide cash income along the way. For many investors in West Africa, especially those building wealth patiently over time, dividend-paying stocks remain an important part of the investment strategy. To access the full dividend calendar, including payment dates, ex-dividend dates, and updated yields, download the Daba app. It is one of the easiest ways to follow BRVM dividends without missing important dates. Now let's turn to the bond market. The bond segment also remained positive. Market capitalization increased by 1.47% to reach 12,325,300,000 CFA francs. In total, 550,385 bonds were traded during the week, for a total value of 4,169,61,253 CFA francs. Most of the activity was concentrated in the Senegal sovereign bond paying 6.95%, 10-year, with 268,132 bonds traded for a total amount of 2,667,913,400 CFA francs. This single bond line represented 48.72% of total bond volume and 59.70% of the total value traded on the bond market during the week. What does that tell us? It shows that investors are still looking for fixed income, meaning investments that can provide more predictable returns. A bond is simply a loan made to a government or a company. In return, the investor usually receives interest payments, also called coupons. For investors who want more stability than stocks, bonds can play an important role. This is especially relevant in a market like the BRVM, where many investors are looking for a balance between growth and income. Stocks can offer dividends and price appreciation, but they can also be volatile. Bonds, on the other hand, can help stabilize a portfolio by providing regular interest income, depending on the issuer and the terms of the bond. The week was also rich in company news. Nestlé Côte d'Ivoire reported revenue growth and a small increase in profit, but sharply reduced its dividend. This suggests that the company may be choosing to strengthen its balance sheet and finance future investments rather than distribute most of its earnings to shareholders. Vivo Energy Côte d'Ivoire reported higher annual profit, supported by stronger volumes in butane and lubricants, but its first quarter of 2026 was more mixed, with weakness in aviation fuel and bitumen. This is a useful reminder that even within one company, different business lines can move in different directions. SIB started 2026 strongly, with quarterly profit rising by 11%, supported by growth in deposits and loans. For a bank, deposit growth is important because it gives the bank more funding to lend to clients. Loan growth is also important because it can generate interest income as long as credit quality remains strong. BOA Benin also delivered a solid start to the year, with net banking income rising by 11%, driven by commissions and interest income. However, profit increased by only 1%, suggesting that costs or provisions may also have risen. For investors, that means it is not enough to look at revenue growth alone. Profitability, costs, and risk management also matter. Another major story came from SMB, Société Multinationale de Bitume, the only bitumen producer in West Africa. The company posted one of its strongest profits in years, supported by road construction demand across the region. This shows how infrastructure investment can directly benefit listed companies. When governments build roads, bridges, and transport infrastructure, companies connected to construction materials and logistics can benefit. Tractafric Motors also confirmed its turnaround, with a recovery in commercial vehicle demand. This reflects improving conditions in sectors such as construction, logistics, and infrastructure. Finally, Bridge Bank Côte d'Ivoire is reportedly preparing an initial public offering on the BRVM. If completed, this could become one of the most watched market operations of the year and could add another banking stock to the regional exchange. For investors, all these developments tell one bigger story. The BRVM is becoming more active, more closely followed, and richer in opportunities. But it also requires more discipline. It is not enough to buy a stock because it is rising. You need to understand the company's results, dividend policy, debt level, liquidity, sector outlook, and valuation. Looking ahead to the week of May 11th to May 15th, the opportunities identified by analysts remain concentrated around several major themes: well-capitalized banks, telecommunications, selected agro-industrial companies, infrastructure-related businesses, specialized distribution, and bonds offering attractive yields to maturity. We will not name specific stocks here, because those recommendations are reserved for Daba Pro subscribers. But the general signal is clear. The market continues to offer opportunities for investors who combine discipline, patience, and data-driven decision-making. This is exactly where Daba Pro becomes useful. With Daba Pro, you get weekly recommendations, detailed stock analysis, exclusive market data, reduced investment fees, and insights designed to help you make better decisions. With Daba Pro, you do not simply follow the market. You stay ahead of it. And if you want to go even further, do not forget Daba Academy. Daba Academy helps you learn the basics of investing, understand the stock market, read dividend information, analyze companies, and build wealth step by step. There is also a special promotion for podcast listeners. Use the code PODCAST and get a 3,000 XOF discount on your Daba Academy registration. For the week ahead, keep an eye on trading activity in the most liquid stocks, dividend announcements, general meetings, and bonds with attractive yields. The market remains promising but selective. The best investors will be those who stay informed, patient, and disciplined. This was your weekly market recap with Markets Talk, the podcast by Daba Finance. I am your markets editor, always connected to the pulse of Francophone Africa. See you soon. Stay curious, stay invested.